The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Welcome to Love Your Body, Love Your Life. My name is Jenna. I am the author of the book titled Love Your Body, Love Your Life. You can find my book on Amazon and on barnesandnoble.com. And today we're talking all about voice, something that's super near and dear to my heart because I found my voice later in life. I actually found it through healing my inner child, which was a very long, deep therapeutic process. Started like in 2010 through 2018, and it continues. It's something that I love to help people with as well, because I feel like that little person inside of us has some true wisdom. And I found my music and my poetry through her and connecting with her and allowing her to express herself. So I'm super excited about today's show. We had a little bit of tech issues on the back end, so we're running a little bit behind, and I want to bring on our guest as soon as possible because the show goes by fast and I want her to share everything she knows about the voice. Valerie Morehouse is a vocal coach to some top names, so I'm super excited and grateful that she's on our show. I'll let her talk about herself and her story. So Valerie, welcome to Love Your Body, Love Your Life.
Hi, thank you for having me, Jenna.
We did it.
Got on. It was a miracle.
Yeah. I know, as creatives, know nothing about tech stuff at all.
I know. I have to have like a little person in my pocket that can help me with all my tech, but we did it. We're on. Somehow we made it happen.
Yeah. I felt like I was going through my mind when I heard you backstage with Juan trying to figure it out I wonder if she's ever experienced this actually, like before a performance or something, or how do you deal with nerves and stress before you go on?
I think for myself, it's different for every singer. A lot of people do get nervous and a lot of singers do get nervous, but I like it when my clients don't have too many people backstage, where they have a meditative space and they can just really get themselves centered and find the intention of each show, because I think that's really important. Every time I see singers that have too much going on and there's too much commotion backstage, they're usually not very centered, and it takes them a while to get through that first song, and you can really see it, and then they start to relax. But I think everybody deals with the nerves differently. I just kind of let myself feel what I'm feeling and know that it's all going to be okay. I just have to go out and take a deep breath. And once I'm past the first verse of the song, I'm good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I just did a performance, Valerie, not too long ago. I think it was in April, and it was actually the most people that I've ever performed in front of. I did 2 covers. And totally fine, right? Up until, and it wasn't like my first performance on stage, but I was totally fine up until like an hour before. And I knew we were going on stage. I had like my guitarist friend, she played guitar. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like all these people were rolling in. I can see that the crowd was getting bigger. And I was like, oh no. And I didn't have that space, because I do that before these shows. Like I get into a meditation and I always say a prayer, like allow me to just speak whatever I'm supposed to say, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that advice,
Yeah, it's just calming, just very, very calming. So everything is about trusting that it's going to be there for you when you hit the stage. It's just trust, like you said.
Yeah. So let's get into your story. I want to hear, and I want the people to hear how you got into this business.
Yeah, so it's a longer conversation, but I would say maybe a shorter answer would be, I was a performer. I've always sung. I was sang since I was a little girl. I did all the choir and the chamber choir, and I got a scholarship to study opera at Chapman University back in the day. So I did all of that. I did a lot of musical theater, and I got nodules when I was in high school, and then I got them again when I was in college. And it was really just not going to great teachers, to be honest with you, that didn't really understand the anatomy of the voice. They were just regurgitating what they learned themselves in school or on the collegiate level. But it was super problematic because the voice is a very delicate balance and you're dealing with a lot of anatomy. And so I didn't really have a lot of people to help me back then. Surgery was not an option in 1989. We didn't have the lasers and we didn't have the medications and we didn't really have the help that we have today. And what I found for singers is there was a real lack of people that could rehabilitate singers. We have speech therapists that go to school for that, and they have a doctor before their name, and they study really hard and they earn that degree. But the problem is that a lot of speech therapists are not singers. And so they don't really understand fully how to rehabilitate somebody that is having nodules or having, vocal issues. And so I felt like I sort of trailblazed that path. There felt like there a big void in the music world, because I saw a lot of singers needing more and more help as they're doing more and more live shows, because that's where the revenue is, right? We stopped selling records, we stopped having CDs and albums and tapes and all of that. Technology happened, and now we're doing downloads for 99 cents. So where are the singers getting their money? They have to tour. And that's very, very hard on the body. So what I saw at a very young age as I was performing was that someone had asked me to teach, and I was going to be a performer. I was not going to be a teacher. And to me, that was like the kiss of death, having to teach. And the more and more I realized that there was a gap somewhere, and that these singers needed some help, and they needed some help from somebody that not only was a singer, but had gone through that path themselves. It was very lonely. And it's not like I chose this. I feel like the universe picked me to teach. And it was chosen for me. And the more and more I did it, the more I loved it. And the more I realized that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's sort of how I got into teaching, and hanging out with all the doctors and the surgeons, and figuring out what's working, what isn't, and why. They help me help my singer, and I help them help their patient. So it's a nice relationship.
Wow. Yeah. I love how your passion found you. A lot of people are still searching for their passion. You know, you were wise enough to actually listen and say, I feel this is right.
Yeah. I had went in for fun just to have a reading or something at a friend's party. And I remember being in my early 20s, and I was in the music business, and I worked out on the label level and the management level, and I did marketing and sales, and I was still pursuing my career. And someone said that I was going to be a teacher, and I was like, what? I'm not going to be a teacher. That's crazy. So, but here I am.
Yeah. Can you just tell me a little bit about nodules, Valerie? Like, what exactly are they?
So good question. So nodes are like little calluses on the vocal cords. And what happens is when we sing, if we're out of balance in any way, if our voice is out of balance, if we're too nasally or we're too hooty, we're using these TA muscles in the neck that run down outside the voice box, and they smush, they grab. You can see my neck doing that. We don't learn how to sing properly in what I call a mixed voice, they start grabbing, and the larynx starts hiking and pushing up against the voice mechanism in the box. So the vocal cords are supposed to phonate. They can't move properly. And so when you're not singing in a mix and the neck muscles are engaged in what you're singing, whether you're singing opera, rock, pop, doesn't matter. What ends up happening is those neck muscles get so tense, they shove the vocal cords together in a very damaging way, and they rub up against each other, and they, in a weird way, like sandpaper, and they create little bumps on the inside of the cord. So if the cords are like this and they're opening and closing, there's usually a little bump on the inside, and it stops them from closing. And the more and more we are in that dis-ease and we don't understand how to sing, the more and more we have that issue, the bigger and the harder the nodules get. It's almost like training properly with somebody uses the muscle properly, not improperly. Like if you're doing a sit-up, you want to use your abs and your core. You don't want to use your neck and your back to help you pull up. Otherwise, you're going to have a neck and a back issue. So it's just retraining the voice how to sing properly and not rub up against, the cords not rubbing up against each other to create those little bumps. Or like if you're weightlifting, where you get calluses on your hands, you put gloves on and you don't have calluses anymore. So it's those types of things. So that's sort of what it is in a nutshell. They're just calluses on the cords.
Mm-hmm. Oof, yeah. I mean, there's so much that goes into the voice. People don't realize. Yeah, it is definitely. What did you say? It's athletic.
Mm-hmm. It's very athletic. It's all bionics, and it's learning how to use the right muscles, which are the vocal cords, to tap in and to engage so that we can phonate in these two places, which is chest, voice, and head mix, and then getting the neck muscles to just tap out and go to sleep. And a lot of people have struggled with that.
I'm just curious, so you find your passion, you're in it. Who was your first client?
Gosh, I had a lot of younger kids when I started. We all have to start somewhere, right? And those are the best places to start because they're malleable. And I learned a lot through teaching kids and was asked to train younger students. But my first big client, I want to say, was this artist named Taryn Manning. And she was in a group called Boomcat back in the day. She's also a big actress. She was on Orange is the New Black. She did Hustle and Flow with Eminem. She's a fabulous talent. And so I had a little card before we had phones. Nobody had phones back then, right? They didn't exist. We had pagers. That's how old I am. And so she found my card on a board in a music store. And there was like 100 cards there. And I said, "How did you choose me?" And she said, "You just had kind eyes." And I'm like, "All right, I'll take it." So I started training her, and I started training a few other people, and then things started to roll. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. I got a huge TV show called Nashville after that. So I did that that was on NBC for 6 years. And so I did that. And then, or ABC rather, sorry, I do a lot of television shows, and they all sort of stream together sometimes, but that was on ABC. And then I got Avril Lavigne about 15 years ago or something. It's been a while. And then it just started to roll one after the other. And I think if you do really good work and people trust you, you just build a name for yourself. And I always tell people in this business, you have to be committed to your process, not attached to your outcome. In everything, in business, in singing, in music, if you think you're going to get rich and it's going to be glamorous, you're in the wrong industry. You have to love it so much that that's the only thing you want to do, because if you're committed to your outcome, you'll never have a joyful ride. It's the same in business. You have to move slowly. I think I worked very slowly, and I was very patient with my business. And I knew that it was something that was going to take a long time to build. I see a lot of people in this industry who want everything now. That includes some of the doctors and the surgeons, by the way. They want everything now. They deal with higher clientele or celebrities, and they some of them are crossing boundaries and will take some shortcuts. There are some fabulous doctors out there, and I work with the majority of those fabulous doctors, but there are a lot of shortcuts that are being taken because being in this business is so saturated, and now that we have social media, it's even more saturated. And so it's like everybody trying to get theirs. And, I just always remind my students and remind people that I mentor, it's a slow process. Just stick to the plan, do a good job, build up trust with your clients, run a clean business, if you will, and you'll come out winning on the back end. That would be my biggest advice.
Absolutely. And I mean, I kind of feel like it is the now time, Valerie, like with social media, like everybody wants it now. I feel like, this generation is a little bit, I don't want to use the word lazy, but a little bit, lackadaisical.
They are lazy and they're entitled. Mm-hmm. Look at it. Look, I'm a parent. I'm in the thick of it. I have two 13-year-old boys. I watch it. And I talk to other clients. I just talked to a client, a producer friend of mine this morning who sings with me. And he has a 13-year-old child. And we were commiserating on how difficult it is to raise kids in this generation. They're just so pulled in so many directions, and they have access to way too many things. And, as good as it is to not have to pull an encyclopedia off a shelf and read about something you need in school, to have access to everything at your fingertips is also very negative. It's very negative for the young people coming up in this business, because they're all comparing themselves to other people's pages that have more likes, more engagement. And it really wreaks havoc on my clients. It's really a really huge epidemic that we see. Ignorance was bliss 15 years ago. You could be in your space and it was a much safer place. And I think people have to remember that you just have to stay the course and worry about your own career and your own stuff, and not worry about what everybody else has, because half of it's fake anyway. Or
shall we say all?
Yeah. Really get into those people's lives that you see that look so glamorous. They have probably bigger problems than you have. And so you just have to really know who you are and have a sense of self when you go into the entertainment business, because it's brutal.
Absolutely.
It's magical, but it's brutal.
It's magical. Is that what you said?
It can be magical, but it is brutal. It's very hard. Half of my job is not just training my singers to be healthy, but talking them off the ledge. For lack of a better a better term, if you will, is just keeping their brain and their mind in the right spot.
So let's talk about that a little bit, Valerie, if we can, just about knowing who you are. Because that is for your industry, that's for across the board, especially for women. I don't want to, we're women. So, in relationships, using your voice, expressing yourself, knowing what your wants and needs are, and allowing them to be expressed in a way that they're heard, more in your feminine, not so much in your masculine. I think that goes a long way in business and in a career and in every area of your life,
Mm-hmm.
So like I shared, I found my voice later in life, and that was a full-on process. I had a lot of stuff to heal, a lot of stuff to let go of, a lot of tears, a lot of, aha moments and piecing things together. And, it took me a long time. And now I get to share that with other people, where I'm super grateful for. But talk about that for a little bit. Like, how do you coach your client through that?
Well, everybody is different. And I think that some people need tough love. Some people need love. I have to know who's sitting in front of me, and I have to know what makes them tick. And am I dealing with somebody with a big ego? Am I dealing with somebody that's just full of fear? That's paralyzed by something a parent told them, or, they really take things to heart when you're young. And it just depends on the person. So, sometimes I have to just be really tough with my clients. And I did say to one of my clients who was having a meltdown before a show, it was a huge show in Spain. And, it was their own fault. They had gone out and probably partied a little too much the night before. And I said, look, it's not like you're sitting in a foxhole, in the middle of a war, sleep deprived. Like, you're going out to do a 90-minute show. So take a shot of whiskey and some throat coat. Let's have a really nice warm up. Brace yourself before you go out on stage. Go have a good time. You have nothing to do after this but sleep. It's just really not that bad. It's basically like, pull your head out. And the person was so grateful, because it woke them up. And at the end of the show, they texted me and said it was the best show they ever had.
Wow.
Sometimes people just need that tough love, and some people really need to know that they're doing a good job, and they need, in that moment, a little bit of coddling, and you have to know it. I have a client that I have days where sometimes they are resonating with me being more gentle with them. And some days they want me to be more hard with them. And I never know which is what day. And, and so you're like, as a teacher, you're all over the place, and you really just have to figure out and read between the lines of what's happening with that student on any given day, because whatever their mindset is coming into the lesson is how their lesson's going to go.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. People show up in their lessons who they are in life. And so that's how I know who I'm dealing with.
I had one of my very first vocal teachers, Johnny Contardo. He was in Greece. He played, I forget his name on the show now, but do you know who I'm talking about? Johnny Contardo. He played one of the greasers in Greece, and now he teaches vocal. And like I said, Valerie, so basically I was married to a musician, my ex-husband. And so little by little, I would find myself on the stage doing backup vocals, didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I loved it. I had full body chills. I was lit up. I felt vulnerable. I felt seen and heard. I felt all these things that I had never have felt. And so I started to ask him, can I sing more? Can I sing more? And I didn't know what I was doing. So of course he was like, you need a lot of work, So I said, I'll take lessons, I was super, So Johnny Contardo was one of my first teachers, and I went in, I was so scared. I was so nervous, but I feel like I had a great game face, right? So I felt like I could he's not going to know, I'm going to walk in. He was like laser, saw right through me. So it's like, I was left there and thought, how did he know me so well? Like he literally knew, he pointed out things in my relationship. And I was like sitting in the chair, not doing that face, but feeling that inside. Like, how does he know this?
Well, I think because we, as teachers, we teach a lot of people. So we see a lot of different students. It's almost like being a therapist without, the degree. We see how people are when they sing, and they trust us, and it's a one-on-one, and you do develop a relationship with that person. And so you can kind of see what's bothering them. And the thing is that teachers have to be very careful, because yes, it's good to identify what's going wrong with the person, right? And how we get them back on track, because then we want them to have a good lesson, and we want them to feel good about themselves. Because if they're having a bad day, it's going to affect the lesson. It's going to affect the warm up. It's going to affect the way that we work. But you also have to create a boundary as a teacher. And I tell my teachers this, that work for me, that you can't get too chummy, because then they're paying a lot of money, and the lesson then becomes a therapy session. And that's not what you're there for, because people, they have a lot of needs, and you have to be very careful not to cross those lines and just say, look, this is probably, I want to get you in the right mindset, but let's not dive too far into your personal life and into your relationships. I just want to give you a little tip and pointer so that you can have a good class today. But teachers really do have to be very careful about all the talking. I'm not saying that he did it, because I don't know him, but I do find that a lot, where people will come in and say, look, it was great for a while, but then I really stopped learning something. It got too chummy. And we ended up talking for 20 minutes of my hour or longer. That's a big problem. You're still there to pay a fee and a service, and you need to get that service. And then you need to separate that. And that person then needs to go and talk to their therapist or their counselor or their friend or whomever deals with that stuff. I think that we need to set some boundaries too, because I see that happen all the time, where the lines get a little bit blurred. And, I've had singers come in and say, yeah, I went to a laryngologist and I just went in to get scoped, and they start telling me who I should be writing with. I mean, that is because they see a lot of celebrities. That is a boundary. That is a boundary that you need to not cross. And these are grown adults doing this. These are grown adults. These are teachers. These are mentors. These are doctors. And I've seen it all. I've been doing this for 27 years, and none of us are perfect. We do our best, but you have to remember your boundaries with your clients and with people that you're training, because sometimes you can say something to them or give them some type of advice that is unwarranted, and you can get into trouble doing that, really. So you just have to be really, really careful and really judicious about what you're there for with that particular person. I find that to be super true. Yeah. But it's nice. It's nice when you have a nice relationship, you know, and they are able to get through in some ways. It sounds like that he got through to you in some way, and it helped you. It helped you open up.
It
and
did.
Right.
It did. It did. I saw him for a little bit and then, moved on. But yeah, he was great to work with.
Yeah.
So what's that?
I said, I love that. You'll usually find, I like to talk about the things that people don't really know go on behind closed doors, because I think it does inform people of like, just be careful who you choose, and that's everything in life, who your friends are, who your teachers are, who your mentors are, finding people that have a moral code and a compass in their life that are giving you the best information you can get. And
in relationships.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure you're an amazing mother, Valerie. I could just tell.
I try. Right. I'm telling you, dealing with now teenagers is still, nobody can prepare you for it. It's a lot, and raising kids in this generation is definitely not easy. Social media, movies, TV, influences, Netflix, Apple TV, video games, everything at their fingertips. It does not make it easy.
Yeah. My gosh. So if somebody wants to be a singer, or if somebody is a singer, how can we give them 3 practical tips, like for vocal health, or something that you would share?
Yeah. So I would say that anybody that is new to singing, right, a beginner, find a teacher. I mean, I'm not a big advocate of doing a bunch of things online. You have all these people that make downloads and you can get their warm-ups, and I'm sure they're helpful, but oftentimes I'll get students that use something that they found online, or they're using a friend's warm-up. And the problem with that is that you have a different set of issues than your friend or your neighbor or your son or your daughter or your sister. As a singer, you have a different set of issues. And so if you're doing 7 exercises that you found on a download, and 3 or 4 of them go with your problem, not against your problem. You always have to go against the problem. If somebody has too much air in their voice, they need exercises that are more glottal, like a gut or a go. If you have too much glottal and too much pull in your voice and too much strain, you need wheeze and loos and things that loosen the voice up. That's a layman's way to explain it, but it's hard to go into in an interview because it's so specific. But my advice would be to find a teacher, because somebody that really understands the anatomy and perhaps works with speech therapists and with ear, nose, and throat doctors or laryngologists to help you start on your path. Because the problem is that if you don't have that, oftentimes you'll go down a wrong path, and you'll listen to a download that has a bunch of exercises on it that's going to make you worse, actually, and tie tight or not. So find a good teacher that can at least get you started, or things like this, or master classes online where you can ask questions and you can plug into your own voice and what other people are doing. I find those to be very, very helpful.
I saw on your website, Valerie, that you had something like an online class that you were putting on.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about that. So there's something that people can go to right away on my. You can pull it off of ValerieMorehouse.com. It's called Skillshare. And it was a really good experience. It was really hard. It took a lot of preparation. It was like 2 full days, like 18 hours of shooting straight, 2 days back. But it was taking you start to finish, from your very first lesson all the way through the end of what you need to do to be in this industry. And it was a really good class. I highly recommend you take it. I think you can, if you just click on it, I think you can view it for free the first month. And so and then after that, you pay a small subscription fee, but it's really, 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 wonderful to have that and to, go into something like Skillshare. I think a lot of people have given me feedback on it and said it was really, really helpful, and they've watched it. So if there's somebody watching that wants to start somewhere and they're afraid to start, go to Skillshare. And it was a master class that I did. You can do it find it on the Skillshare app. the Skillshare Instagram page, or you can find the link on my Instagram, which is official Val Morehouse.
Okay. So ValerieMorehouse.com or official.
Val Morehouse is the Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a link. I think there's a link. You can actually click on it and go to it through my my Instagram.
Okay, perfect. So find a good teacher, go to ValerieMorehouse.com. And it's really easy. Your website's really awesome, by the way. I listened to Lip Roll. I listened to one of your episodes where I'm not sure, I'm not verbatim on the, exact what you were talking about, but you got into the voice and how it's an emotional, like there's an emotional
connection. Right.
Do you remember that? You had somebody hosting with you. There was two girls. One girl, she looked really young. She had lost her mom. She was a performer.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other one would have probably been Annie Bosco. So she's a big, does a lot of stuff in Nashville, and the brunette girl. Yeah. She's more notable. She's very, I think that's the one. There was a couple though that we talked about.
Okay.
But all of that, there is all those emotional elements that go into singing. And Lip Roll was this really cool, podcast that I did, and everybody came in person, and we did it before the pandemic. And then we sort of stopped and had to shelve everything because nobody was doing anything during the pandemic. We haven't actually picked it back up again. I'd like to do it again via sort of some format like this. We're still talking about it, but it was great because I had all those people were my clients, and I'd have my clients and my artists come on, and I'd actually interview them and talk about, their emotional mindset and how difficult it is just to be a singer when you've had someone tell you that maybe you're not that great, or don't quit your day job. And now they're doing it as a living, but they still feel that inside. And so the emotional aspects of being a performer, it's very vulnerable. I mean, sharing your instrument and your voice is one of the most vulnerable things you can do. And so it's a real trade and a real gift and a real privilege to be able to teach singers and bring that out of them, because even some of my biggest stars, they are still frightened to go out on stage live.
It is so vulnerable, Valerie. Like, even practicing in my own house, I get nervous to go to my high voice, like my head voice.
Head voice, right? Yeah, because it's untapped territory, and so we're not just speaking. When we have to sing, it says something more about us as human beings, right? We want to be loved, we want to be accepted, we want to be understood. Is it bad? Will people think that I'm bad? And I have all these students that are caught up on singing on key all the time, which yes, we need to do, and it's very important. But we live in a generation with all auto-tune and Melodyne and all of that. I like to teach singers from a baseline. I don't like them using all of that unless it's absolutely necessary, unless it's also a confidence issue. But I had one of my clients had a big show the other night in LA, and everybody there, it was a private event. Everybody was brought to tears. It was magical. And this particular person was caught up on the 3 or 4 times they went off key. And I'm like, why aren't you looking at all the good stuff that you just did? I mean, it's real life. We used to sing off key or go a little janky all the time back in analog days when everything was tape, and it was just rock and roll, and nobody cared. We just wanted to perform, and we wanted to be entertained as listeners. And so now everybody's got this perfectionism, and you see it everywhere with clothes and shoes and makeup and hair and extensions and eyelashes and lip injections and face stuff, face injections and the perfect lighting. And then we can't be out of key. And it's like, I mean, what are we doing? Are we plastic? Are we not human anymore? I want to go and see a human experience. I want to be moved. And I tell my singers that all the time. Just move people and be honest about what you're singing. And stop worrying about all the external stuff. You guys are all living from the outside in. You need to learn to live from the inside out. You're never going to find nirvana as an artist, as a human being, anything, if you don't come from inside out. It can't be outside in. It's got to be just perform and tell your story and stop worrying about hitting every little thing live perfectly. The record is the record. The studio is the studio. That's where everything gets fixed. But live, sometimes the mistakes are pretty magical, and it shows us that you're a human being, and allow that to happen. You know, I had a client say to me, I'll never forget, we had a huge performer that did the Super Bowl years ago, and she put on this crazy performance, and you could hear her breathing. And, you know, at the end of the show, she came backstage and she like fell to her knees, and I know some of the people on her team said she just started to cry because she was releasing all of this stress of like, I just did a halftime show at the Super Bowl by myself. I sang every single note. I didn't have a tune and all this help. And it was a real accomplishment. And these people work hours and hours and hours to do that. I know Beyonce works very, very hard at things like that to make everything as perfect as she can, so she doesn't have to use too much fanfare, right? Like, she's really dancing and moving. And a lot of people had said after that Super Bowl halftime show, they said, oh, you know, you could hear her breathing. I said, of course she was breathing, because she was actually singing. You know, so you have to remember those things. People forget that artistry has got to be three-dimensional, and if everything's perfect, it's like going and why don't you just put a cardboard cutout of yourself on the stage and hit play? Mm-hmm. You know, so I keep reminding this generation from 38 on down, let's say 40 on down now, like, guys, it's got to be organic. Let it be organic. Stop focusing on the things you didn't do well and start looking at all the things you're proud of. And why is it so hard for us to do? I don't know. It's very hard for us as human beings. And I think that the culture of music and the perfectionism and social media and all of that I don't know, it's like robbed a lot of people of their joy. Not that it's all bad. There's a lot of good about it. You know, there's a lot great about it. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of negative stuff that comes with it as well. And so I just have to keep reminding my clients of that, because I didn't grow up with all of that. Mm-hmm. I just didn't have it. I mean, I didn't even own a cell phone till I was 28.
Yeah. A couple things that I hear that I want to mention is, well, number one, I love that's why I feel like I love acoustic performances, mm-hmm. where it's literally raw, a guitar and a singer.
Yep.
And that's it. Like, that's like one of my favorite performances or even experiences. Mm-hmm. I was lucky enough to, you know, get better with my singing. So my ex-husband would allow me to go and do a couple songs with him. And that was one of my favorite things to do, was when it was just him and I and the guitar on the stage, or even at home, just in our pajamas, you know, just hanging.
Yeah. It's raw and it's vulnerable and it's real. And it's like why you get a lot of great artists out of Nashville, you know, and they go do the Bluebird Cafe, and it's just a singing in the round, basically, with piano and guitar, or just guitar and a singer. And it's very scary and very vulnerable. So my clients that are able to do that, you know, it's life-changing for them. And once they can do that, they can do anything. Then the big crowds with the shows, and, you know, that's the easier stuff.
Yeah.
You know, bells and whistles. But yeah, I love the acoustics as well.
Yeah. The other thing I was just curious about, Valerie, so talking about all of the you know, the bells and the whistles and the hoopla that goes into everything now, you know, social media and everything that we're talking about, how do you personally stay grounded and centered in being authentic and real?
That's a good question. An easy answer. I just know who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer. You know, I'm 51 years old right now. Mm-hmm. I've lived a lot of life. I didn't grow up with all of the the stuff. You know, I always tell people I exercise. I'm a runner, a lifter. That is my fountain of youth. I try to eat clean. I try to be happy. I try to get outdoors. I try to just have balance in my life, you know, and nothing's ever perfect. My life definitely can get out of balance at times, and I have to sort of figure out a way to center myself again and reach out for help. And then I have, you know, months that go by that are really great. And I think we all go through those things, but I think I just didn't grow up with all of that. So I think that's part of it, right? I grew up in the 80s and we just went out and played, and life was more simple. It really was. And so, and I also had parents that were very old school, and I had a mom that, was always very uplifting and said, you can do anything you want. So I had that support. I had good friends, and now I have great friends. I have a group of really close girlfriends I've known for 25 years plus, and they're all high functioning individuals. They're my therapy. We get together a lot, and they all, we all support one another. I have a really good family. So I like to be drama free. I think we all do, but I really try to stay as drama free as possible. And I just want good energy and good stuff. And I think being grounded is really just knowing who you are. And I guess, I don't know, this sounds very trite, but I just knew at a very young age who I was. And whether I was being bullied because I grew up in England and I had an accent when I came back to the States when I was 10 and 11, to being a singer, to who I was dating, to whatever it was, where people have their jealousies and their insecurities. I dealt with plenty of bullying and things like that, and junior high, as most kids do. And I don't know, I mean, I just always had a sense of self, and even though it bothered me, it didn't bother me so deeply where I was going to go off the deep end. I just always have been someone that knew who I was. I have had moments in my life where I did lose myself. I dated the wrong person that had a little bit too much influence over me, because I might have been 19 and they might have been 24, and that's a really big gap. And so as women, we really need to find our voices. But I've quickly snapped back and remembered who I was when I got out of that relationship. And I try to take all those experiences and give those gifts to people that are younger than me that don't have the knowledge or the experience yet. So I really just think it is just how I feel as a person getting up out of bed. Do I feel good about getting up out of bed? And do I feel good about who I am and who I'm showing my children? Because I am a mom, I'm raising 2 boys. I think that you have to walk the walk.
Yeah.
And so I really do walk the walk, not just for myself, but for my kids and my family. And I've been doing it so long that it's like, it's
second nature.
It's not super glamorous for me. It's just my job. It's just my job, I mean, and to be truth be told, I'd rather stay home. I don't want to go out to all the shows and be on the road. I want to be a mom. I want to be home. I want to have my career, but I also, being out late at night is not really my cup of tea. I want to go to bed early. I want to get up early so I can go work out, and I have a more balanced life now. So I just have done it so long that I have to stay true to myself, and people understand that I'm not there for the hoopla. I'm not there for the live stuff and all the stuff going on backstage. I'm the girl that tries to get away from all of that, go in and do my job and meet who I want to meet and help my client and be the best person I can be in that situation. But then I'm out. Have fun, go out and party and have your drinks, but I'm going to go home. And I think that is who you have to be when you're in this job and you're dealing with celebrities all day long.
Yeah. Well, I wish we could talk for another hour, Valerie, but it's time. I know we started late.
Sorry about that, but we did it. I think we got a lot covered. So
yeah, we did. ValerieMorehouse.com. If you can read on the chat, is that the right website?
Let's see. ValerieMorehouse.com.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can do, that's my website. And then the Instagram is official Val Morehouse.
Official Val.
Find me there. You can DM me there. I'd rather you go through the website and send me any questions or concerns or, anything about teaching or coaching, because there's a contact page and I read all those. I don't care if I get hundreds. I read them all myself. They don't go to my assistant. They don't go to my teachers to read. I read them first, and then we figure out what we need to do with that person from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Really fun.
So we could say goodbye officially.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yeah, stay backstage.
Okay, will do.
Thank you so much. Oh, we love Valerie Morehouse. There was a lot covered today. I think the takeaway is know who you are, Do your inner child work. Find stability within yourself, so that flows into everything: your voice, your expression, your singing, your music, your art and yourself and your relationships. So until next time, love your body and love your life. Take care.